They said it was science. They called it progress. But behind the lab coats were some of the darkest chapters in human history. What if your government tried to hack your brain with LSD? Welcome to MKUltra, the CIA program that asked, "Can we control minds?" And then said, "Cool, let's try everything, preferably without telling anyone." During the early Cold War, American intelligence panicked. The Soviets, the Chinese, even North Korea were rumored to have brainwashing tech. So, in 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles greenlit a secret project, placed under the charmingly titled Technical Services Staff, run by a soft-spoken chemist with a Black Ops resume, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. His mission? Figure out how to break and make a mind, with science and, a lot of LSD. MKUltra wasn't one experiment, it was 150 plus sub-projects. Think of it like a very dark Netflix library. LSD on unsuspecting people. Yes, really. Sensory deprivation, hypnosis, electroshock to reprogram personalities. Sleep deprivation and isolation tanks. Even attempts at truth serums to make spies sing like canaries. And they tested on soldiers, prisoners, psychiatric patients, students, and sometimes random civilians who never knew they were part of a study. Ethics committee? Oh, that got MKUltra'd too. In San Francisco and New York, the CIA literally set up safe houses where sex workers, on the CIA payroll, invited men in, slipped them LSD, and agents watched from behind one-way mirrors while sipping martinis and taking notes like, so that's how paranoia looks. Yes, this was real. One of the most haunting MKUltra cases, Frank Olson, a government scientist, was dosed with LSD without his knowledge during a CIA retreat in 1953. Days later, he fell from a 13th floor hotel window. The official story said suicide. His family believed otherwise. The US apologized in 1975, but questions still linger. North of the border, Dr. Ewan Cameron in Montreal tried to de-pattern patients, wiping their personalities with massive electroshocks, drug-induced comas, and looped audio messages, funded in part by the CIA. Patients came in for anxiety and left with lost memories. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered most MKUltra files destroyed, but some billing records survived. In 1975, the Church Committee investigated. In 1977, the FOIA requests surfaced 20,000 pages of documents. The public finally saw a glimpse of the chaos. Short answer: mind control is hard. LSD doesn't make perfect soldiers. Hypnosis won't turn you into a programmable assassin on command, but the program proves something terrifying. Institutions, in secrecy, can cross every ethical line if nobody is watching. Imagine being told you've got bad blood, given free checkups and hot meals, and the plan is to watch what happens if they never really treat you. Welcome to Tuskegee, Alabama, 1932. Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis, 1932 to 1972. It's the Great Depression. The U.S. Public Health Service teams up with the Tuskegee Institute. They recruited 600 black men, 399 with syphilis, 201 without, and promised them free health care for their mysterious bad blood. Spoiler, it wasn't really treatment, it was observation. The doctors wanted to see the natural progression of syphilis. And when penicillin became the standard cure in the 1940s, Guess what? The men were deliberately not told. Penicillin is widely recognized as effective by 1943 to 1947. Still no full treatment here. Meanwhile, 1947 gives us the Nuremberg Code on ethical research. And Tuskegee keeps going. Even when participants got drafted, official letters were sent to keep them from being treated. Enter Peter Buxton in 1966, a PHS employee who said, guys, this is wildly unethical. Crickets. Finally, in 1972, journalist Gene Heller blows it up in the Associated Press. The study shuts down. 1972, exposed. Study ends. The survivors file a lawsuit in 1973. There's a $10 million settlement and lifetime medical care for the men, later extended to their wives, widows, and infected children. And in 1997, President Bill Clinton formally apologizes at the White House. May 16, 1997. Official apology. The disaster helped drive Informed Consent Rules, IRBs, and the Belmont Report, 1979. Basically the ask people first, don't deceive them, and maybe treat them rulebook of modern research. So, Tuskegee wasn't a bad apple story, it was a systemic betrayal dressed up as science. Ever heard of a doctor who thought medical ethics were just optional? Meet Joseph Mengele, a man who looked like a gentleman, spoke like a scholar, and tortured like a maniac. During World War II, Mengele worked at Auschwitz, the infamous Nazi concentration camp. His nickname? The Angel of Death. Romantic, right? Not really. His obsession? Twins. If you were a twin in Auschwitz, congratulations! You just got upgraded from death chamber to science lab rat. He'd separate one twin for cruel experiments, injecting chemicals into their eyes to change eye color, or sewing twins together to create Siamese twins. Because apparently, stitching kids together was medical research. He once tried to create a blonde, blue-eyed super race, and his lab looked like Frankenstein's discount version, with blood, needles, and human organs as interior decor. But here's the kicker. Mengele was so polite, he'd bring kids sweets and toys, and then inject their hearts with chloroform the next day. Talk about mixed signals. When the war ended, did he get caught? Nope. He escaped to South America, lived in Argentina and Brazil, and even went swimming and had a pet parrot. Because clearly nothing says retired war criminal like feeding crackers to birds on the beach. He died in 1979, not by trial or justice, but by drowning after a stroke while swimming. Ironically, the Angel of Death couldn't escape his own body. So next time you hear, trust me, I'm a doctor, maybe check their credentials first. Imagine a water purification unit that purified nothing. Welcome to Unit 731, where science took a detour straight into horror. Let's talk about the most chilling lab you didn't learn about in school. It's the 1930s. Imperial Japan occupies Manchuria and builds a secret complex called the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. Cute name, totally misleading. Enter General Shiro Ishii, charismatic, ambitious, and obsessed with biological warfare. He convinces the top brass, hey, diseases are cheaper than bullets. And they say, promote this man. Behind those walls, human beings, POWs, civilians, turned into logs in lab notebooks. We're talking frostbite experiments, How fast can skin freeze? Pressure chamber tests, biological weapons trials with plague, cholera, anthrax, and vivisections without anesthesia. Science without ethics is just cruelty wearing a lab coat. They didn't stop indoors. Field tests allegedly released infected fleas and pathogens on villages to see how outbreaks moved. Data first, lives last. 1945, Japan surrenders. The unit tries to erase itself, burning documents, destroying facilities, and silencing witnesses. Here's the plot twist. Some Unit 731 leaders received immunity from US authorities in exchange for their research data. Meanwhile, the Soviets held trials in Khabarovsk in 1949, broadcasting details to the world. Justice? Partial, complicated, messy. For decades, the victims barely had a voice. Memorials now exist, survivors testified, but many questions and names were lost. The biggest lesson? Science needs ethics like planes need wings. Without it, everything crashes. Imagine you signed up for a psychology study for $15 a day, and 2 days later, you're crying, chanting a prisoner number, and begging to get out of a fake jail in a Stanford basement. Welcome to the Stanford Prison Experiment, 1971, aka How Fast Can Nice College Kids Turn into Cruel Guards? Spoiler, way too fast. Summer, August 14th, 1971. Psychologist Philip Zimbardo converts the Stanford Psych building basement into a prison. 24 healthy male college students pass screenings, flip a coin, half become guards with batons and mirrored sunglasses, half become prisoners with smocks and ID numbers. The plan? 14 days of roleplay to study power, authority, and what happens when you give people way too much costume budget for sunglasses. To make it real, local Palo Alto police literally arrest the prisoners at home, fingerprinted, blindfolded, booked. By the time they hit the basement, they're stripped, deluged with harmless spray, and given numbers. The guards? Told they can't use physical violence, but they must maintain order. That phrase will age poorly in about 24 hours. By night 1, guards are doing 2 a.m. head counts. Push-ups become punishment. A small closet becomes solitary confinement. The vibe? Method acting meets power trip. Within 36 hours, prisoner 8612 has a breakdown, screaming, crying, saying he's losing his mind. He's released, which only amps up the guard's authority performance. Then there's prisoner 819. After a panic attack, he hears other prisoners chanting, "Prisoner 819 did a bad thing." He starts sobbing until Zimbardo tells him, "You're not 819, you're your name." And just like that, we remember. This is supposed to be science, not a method-acting cult. Enter Christina Maslach, a grad student and later Zimbardo's wife. She sees the guards' cruelty, the prisoners collapse, and says, "What are you doing?" That moral reality check ends the whole thing on day 6, August 20th, 1971. 8 days early. The experiment becomes legendary and infamous. It's taught in every psych class, criticized for weak methodology, demands characteristics, and for crossing ethical lines so badly it basically helps cement stricter IRB oversight and modern research ethics. Was it proof that power corrupts, or that people play the roles they think researchers want? Either way, don't run prisons in your basements, kids. Imagine your country asking you to help the war effort by stepping into a sealed chamber filled with mustard gas. And no, not the kind you put on hot dogs. This is sulfur mustard, the blistering agent that melted skin in World War I. Ready? Deep breath. Actually, don't. During World War II, the US military feared that Nazi Germany or Japan might use chemical weapons. So they needed to know, could American soldiers survive it? Would protective gear work? Answer? Let's test it on our own troops. Tens of thousands of servicemen were funneled into chemical tests. Thousands were reportedly sealed in gas chambers or exposed in the field. Some tests were even race-based, targeting African American, Puerto Rican, and other minority soldiers to see if skin color changed vulnerability. Spoiler, gas doesn't care. Picture this, you're a 19-year-old recruit, wearing a mask you're told will probably work. They shut the door. The gas hisses, your eyes burn, your lungs scream, your skin bubbles into blisters. No, this isn't a Marvel origin story. When the door opens, congratulations, you've just been Data. Oh, and don't tell anyone. Many soldiers were ordered to keep it secret, even from doctors later in life. Decades of breathing problems, skin lesions, cancers, PTSD, and still silence. It took declassification and public reporting decades later for many veterans to finally be heard. Wait, Geneva Protocol 1925 banned chemical warfare, right? Loophole time. We're not using it in war, we're just testing it. Informed consent barely existed. Institutional review boards and the Belmont Report only came much later, after enough people asked, are we the baddies? Years later, as stories surfaced, the US government faced pressure to acknowledge and compensate affected veterans. Some got help, many didn't. Bureaucracy moves slower than mustard gas blisters heal. The mustard gas experiments are a reminder. Imagine a government-backed medical team saying, "We're here to help you," and then intentionally giving you syphilis. Plot twist, you never consented. You were poor, marginalized, sometimes a child in an orphanage. And decades later, the world only finds out by accident. Welcome to the Guatemala experiments, 1946 to 1948. The "We did what?" chapter of medical history. Post-World War II. Antibiotics like penicillin are the new superheroes. The US Public Health Service wants data. How well does penicillin treat sexually transmitted infections? Ethical red flags? Poof! They pack their bags and head to Guatemala, where vulnerable groups, prisoners, psychiatric patients, soldiers, sex workers, and yes, even children in state care are easy to control and unlikely to say no, or even to be asked. Enter Dr. John C. Cutler, later also known as Tuskegee. The research team, with support from US and Guatemalan authorities, secretly runs experiments on over 1,300 people. Hundreds were deliberately infected with syphilis or gonorrhea. Consent? Non-existent. Documentation? Oh, meticulously kept, just not shared with the public. How do you give people syphilis? The team used sex workers already infected, direct inoculation into abrasion, and other procedures you absolutely do not want to visualize over lunch. Penicillin was sometimes given, sometimes not, and sometimes too late. The point was data, not dignity. By 1948, the project quietly ended. The papers were filed away in the "let's never talk about this" drawer. Until 2010, when historian Susan Riverby stumbled on the records. The US government, via Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and HHS Secretary Kathleen Sebelius, issued an official apology. A 2011 Presidential Bioethics Commission called it what it was, a gross violation of ethics. From this scandal, and others, we doubled down on informed consent, IRBs, and principles like those in the Belmont Report, respect for persons, beneficence, justice. Translation? You don't get to play God with human beings. You get Genghis Khan, the man who didn't just defeat his enemies, he creatively erased them from history. Have you ever been so angry that you wiped out an entire city? Well, Genghis Khan did, and trust me, it wasn't just anger, it was nuclear-level rage. Let's rewind to the year 1221 in the city of Nishapur, Persia. The Mongols were on a roll, steamrolling through Asia faster than a TikTok trend. Now, Genghis wasn't even there. He had left his trusted general, Tokuchar, who also happened to be his son-in-law, in charge. Everything was going fine until the people of Nishapur decided to revolt. And in the chaos, boom! Tokuchar, dead. Big mistake. When the great Khan found out, he didn't just get mad, he got biblically vengeful. He sent his other general, Subutai, with one instruction. Erase Nishapur. I want dust, and make it personal. And oh boy, did they make it personal. They didn't just kill the army, they killed everyone. Men, women, children, cats. Okay, maybe not the cats, but you get it. According to some historians, 1.7 million people were massacred. Yup, that's more than the population of some countries today. Gone. But here's the extra spicy part. They captured the nobles, the ones behind the revolt, and poured molten metal down their throats. You know, just in case they had any final thoughts to share. Excuse me, sir, may I... This wasn't just punishment, this was a statement. Mess with the Khan's family, you get a front row seat to hell with VIP service. So the next time your in-laws annoy you, just be thankful you're not Genghis Khan, because history shows he took revenge to a whole new level. Do you think your city had a bad day? Well, let me introduce you to Merv, a wealthy, powerful, peaceful city. Until Genghis Khan showed up, and then things got really wet with blood. Back in the 13th century, Merv was one of the largest cities in the world, full of scholars, poets, engineers, libraries, beautiful gardens, and, oops, a very unfortunate strategic location. Because in 1221, Genghis Khan sent his son, Tolui, to pay Merv a visit. And by visit, I mean siege, deception, and total annihilation. Mongol style. The poor people of Merv actually surrendered peacefully. They opened the gates. Welcome, please don't murder us. Tolui smiled and said, of course not. Then he took their leaders hostage, separated the population into neat little groups like a very dark version of social sorting. Craftsmen? Maybe useful. Scholars? We'll see. The rest? Let's call them fertilizer. Then came the most Mongol solution ever. The population, some say 700,000 to over 1 million people, was systematically executed. So many bodies were dumped into Merv's irrigation canals that the water turned red. The canals ran with bloody soup for days. Farms downstreams were probably like, honey, why are the tomatoes growing so violently? Now here's the twist. The few people Tolui spared, he took them away to be slave engineers for the Mongol Empire. So, if you were too smart, you got kidnapped. Too average, you got chopped. Moral of the story? Never be located between Genghis Khan and where he wants to go. And remember, if your city's irrigation system ever runs red, just hope it's because someone spilled wine, not an entire population. Quick question. How do you decorate a conquered city when you're Genghis Khan? Forget flowers, forget fireworks. You build a pyramid of skulls. Yeah, you heard that right. Let's rewind to the year 1220. Samarkand, a jewel of Central Asia, a bustling, beautiful city full of culture, scholars, traders, and really bad decision making. Because when Genghis Khan came knocking, what did they do? They resisted. Big mistake. The city had thick walls, strong warriors, even war elephants. But Genghis Khan had something better: tactics, speed, and rage-fueled efficiency. He surrounded Samarkand, cut off supplies, and sent in wave after wave of horsemen. Within days, the city surrendered. And that's when the party started, but not the fun kind. Genghis wanted to send a message, not just to Samarkand, but to every city on his hit list. Obey me or become architecture. He ordered the mass beheading of all captured soldiers and resistors. And then, like the world's most terrifying interior decorator, he had their skulls stacked into massive pyramids outside the city gates. No TikTok, no drone shots, just thousands of bleached white skulls baking in the desert sun, screaming silently, "Guess who was here?" And guess what? It worked. Other cities heard the story and surrendered without a fight. So next time you're redecorating, maybe skip the skulls, unless you're trying to terrify a continent. Quick question. What happens when Genghis Khan knocks on your city gates and you don't open? Answer: you don't eat for months, and eventually, you eat each other. Welcome to Zhongdu, the capital of the Jin dynasty, modern-day Beijing. In 1215, Genghis Khan showed up with a big army, zero chill, and a serious grudge against the Jin Empire. They had insulted his ambassadors. Big mistake. So, he parked his troops outside Zhongdu and said, "Nobody leaves, nobody eats." Classic Mongol hospitality. The siege lasted months. The city's walls were strong, but Genghis was patient and well-fed. Meanwhile, the people inside were not doing so great. First, they ate their grain reserves, then their horses, then rats. And when even the rats said, "I'm out," things got dark. Eyewitnesses' accounts say citizens began eating corpses, and when corpses ran out, well, you know what's next. Cannibalism. Yes, it became so common that parents reportedly exchanged children so they wouldn't have to eat their own. Let that sink in. After months of starvation and horror, the Jin Emperor begged for peace. Genghis said, "Sure, no problem," and then burned the city down. Classic Genghis twist ending. So remember, when Genghis Khan comes knocking, maybe just open the door. How angry do you have to be to invent a whole new method of execution? Well, if you're Genghis Khan, the answer is all the way to molten silver. Let's rewind to the early 13th century. Genghis Khan was on his global visit to every city and burn it down tour. And one local governor in the Khwarezmian Empire made a very bad decision. He attacked a Mongol trade caravan. Big mistake. Huge. It's like slapping a sleeping bear with a flaming stick. Then, to make it worse, he executed the Mongol envoys that Genghis sent to negotiate. That's not just rude, that's international, please invade me behavior. Genghis Khan was furious, like historically unforgivable furious. So, when he conquered the region, he captured that governor. And oh boy, he didn't just kill him. He gave him a lesson in economics. You see, this governor loved money. Gold, silver, wealth, he hoarded it like a dragon with a gambling problem. So Genghis, in one of the pettiest and most poetic executions in history, ordered that molten silver be poured into the man's eyes and ears. Literal liquid wealth, right into the sockets. Think of it as a metal crown, custom fit, for eternal regret. And if that's not dramatic enough, legend says it became one of Genghis' favorite "don't mess with me" stories to tell at Mongol dinner parties. So next time you think about betraying a Mongol trade agreement, ask yourself, do I want the deluxe silver package in my head? What happens when you chase a Mongol army for 9 days straight across scorching steppe with no rest, no supplies, and the world's best horsemen pretending they're afraid of you? You're about to star in Genghis Khan's favorite prank show. Let me take you to the year 1223, in the lands near the Kalka River, present-day Ukraine. A bunch of overconfident Russian princes thought they could stop the Mongol invasion. And sure, they had numbers, but they didn't have Mongol mind games. The Mongols, led by Subutai and Jeb, two of Genghis Khan's most genius generals, decided to play a little psychological warfare. They pretended to run away for 9 whole days. That's right, full-on sprint like, oh no, scary Russians! But here's the trick. It was all a trap. The Russians fell for it hard. They chased the Mongol deeper and deeper. While their horses dropped dead from exhaustion, their troops fell behind and their supply lines non-existent. Basically, they were playing Mongol tag on nightmare mode. Then, just as the Russians were gasping for breath and thinking, "We got him!" surprise! The Mongols turned around and attacked in full force. Organized, fresh, and perfectly timed. The result? The Rus' army was absolutely demolished. Thousands were slaughtered, and the surviving Russian princes, they were taken prisoner and given VIP seats in the ground. The Mongols laid wooden boards over their bodies and had a celebratory feast, while the princes slowly suffocated underneath. Yup, dinner on your enemies' faces. Brutal? Yes. Creative? Very. Effective? Definitely. Moral of the story? Never chase a Mongol. If they run, it's not fear. It's probably a setup for something worse. Just the rumor that Genghis Khan might be thinking about sending 100,000 horsemen towards your city. Because by the time Genghis Khan was halfway through his world tour of destruction in the early 13th century, his reputation alone was enough to make cities surrender without a single arrow fired. Let's set the stage. It's 1220. You're the governor of a nice little city along the Silk Road. Maybe Herat, maybe Nishapur. life's good, tea's hot, the walls are strong. Then someone runs in screaming, "He's coming! The Mongols are coming!" And you've heard the stories. Entire cities turned to ash, rivers clogged with corpses, skull pyramids that make the pyramids of Giza jealous. And worst of all, that thing with the molten silver in the eyes. Ouch. So what do? Option A, be brave, defend your city with honor. Option B, throw open the gates, roll out a red carpet, and send a fruit basket. Guess what most people picked? You see, Genghis Khan had mastered psychological warfare before it was cool. He'd spare a few survivors from a destroyed city and send them ahead to the next one, traumatized, bloodstained, and screaming, "Don't fight them! Just don't!" Sometimes, cities that did resist were wiped out so completely, the next 5 cities just surrendered out of pure panic. It was the medieval version of Yelp. 1 star, would not recommend resisting. And it worked. By 1221, entire kingdoms were collapsing in fear before the Mongols even arrived. No battle, no siege, just rumor and results. Think your daily routine is gross? Today, we're diving into the nastiest things humans used to think were perfectly normal. This is real life, real history, real gross. You think public restrooms today are bad? Well, welcome to ancient Rome, where going to the toilet was not just a private moment, but a full-on social event. And the star of the show? A sponge on a stick. Yeah, that was their toilet paper. It's called a tessorium, a wooden stick with a sponge attached to one end. But here's the gross part. It was shared by everyone. That's right, one public toilet, a row of stone seats, no walls, no privacy, and one happy little sponge passed from butt to butt like a party baton. People would sit side by side, chatting politics, gossip, gladiator fights, while doing their business. Imagine someone turning to you mid-poop and saying, "So, you catch that chariot race yesterday?" That's Roman culture for you. Now, to be fair, they did have a cleaning method. After each use, they dipped the sponge in a bucket of water mixed with vinegar or salt water. And then, yep, back on the shelf it goes for the next lucky customer. It's the ancient version of, "Please leave the sponge as you found it, unless you found it gross, in which case, too bad." And don't forget, the sponge wasn't optional. Romans took hygiene seriously. Not wiping after pooping was considered barbaric. So you either used a shared sponge or you were a filthy outcast. There is even evidence that poor hygiene from these toilets spread disease, especially when someone skipped the vinegar step. You had one job! But here's the kicker. Some historians believe rich Romans had personal tessoria, a VIP butt sponge, if you will. Maybe even with embroidered handles. Because nothing says luxury like a monogrammed poop stick. So next time you're complaining about running out of toilet paper, just remember, at least you're not sharing a butt sponge with 20 strangers in a stone room with no doors. Ah yes, the glory of ancient civilization. Did you brush your teeth today? With minty freshness and fluoride powder? Well, what if I told you that the ancient Egyptians also brushed their teeth? But their toothpaste included burnt eggshells, ashes, and mouse poop? Yes, mouse poop. Let's take a journey back in time and into the world's first disgusting dental routine. Around 5,000 years ago, Egyptians were weirdly obsessed with dental hygiene, and for good reason. Sand and grit from their bread made their teeth wear down fast. So, to fight plaque, they invented the first ever toothpaste, and it was extra crunchy. Here's the ancient Egyptian recipe. Brace yourself. Crush rock salt, burnt eggshells, charcoal ash, and yes, powdered mouse droppings. All ground into a fine powder and rubbed directly on the teeth with a finger or a stick. Nothing says good morning like a mouthful of rodent feces and ashes. But wait, the Egyptians weren't alone. The Romans, they preferred urine-based mouthwash. Yes, they switched pee for fresh breath. Pee contains ammonia, a natural cleanser. Science, I guess. The Chinese went herbal, ginseng, salt, and flowers. Europe during the Middle Ages, they said, toothpaste? Nah, just don't smile too wide. Rotting teeth were in. But weird as it was, the Egyptian recipe actually worked. Modern dentists tested the ingredients and found they were surprisingly effective at removing plaque. Sure, the mouse poop part did make it into Colgate's formula, but hey, they were ahead of their time. So the next time you complain about brushing your teeth, just remember, at least you don't have to chase a mouse every morning for dental hygiene. Now, if you excuse me, I'll never look at my toothbrush the same way again. What if I told you that in 17th century Europe, people believed drinking fresh human blood could make you younger, stronger, and more fabulous? Sounds like a vampire fantasy? Nope, it's real history. Back in the day, medicine was, let's say, a little experimental. Doctors believed that life force, or vitality, could be transferred. So if someone died suddenly, their blood still had power. And who better to supply it than executed criminals? People, especially the rich and desperate, would rush to public executions, not to watch, but to catch the fresh blood in fancy goblets. Yes, they literally stood under the scaffold like, "Excuse me, sir, one shot of net juice, please." Some even believe that smearing warm blood on the face could cure acne and make skin glow. Early versions of Vampire K-Beauty? One woman reportedly drank blood daily until she died from iron poisoning. But hey, her skin was flawless. Even the philosopher Francis Bacon believed in the power of fresh blood. In Germany, apothecaries sold powdered mummy, real ground-up corpses for energy. And in England, some nobles rubbed human fat into their skin like lotion. So next time you complain about your expensive anti-aging serum, remember, at least you're not sipping blood from a beheaded criminal at 7 a.m. History is weird. Like and subscribe for more disgusting facts they never taught you in school. Did you just cut your finger? No worries, just grab a live mouse and slap it on the wound. Yes, that was actually a thing. Welcome to the wonderful world of ancient folk medicine, where logic goes out the window and rats go on your face. Back in medieval Europe and parts of ancient China, people had some creative ideas about healing. Forget bandages and antiseptic, that's for weaklings from the future. Instead, when you got a nasty cut, some folks believed the body heat of a live mouse could magically draw out the bad energy and heal the wound. So what did they do? They tied a real squeaking mouse right onto your bleeding leg or arm. No anesthesia, no antibiotics, just mouse power. If you were lucky, the mouse didn't poop on your wound. If you were unlucky, congratulations! You now have the bubonic plague starter pack. But wait, it gets weirder. In some rural traditions, they crushed baby mice with herbs and applied the gooey mess onto bruises. Yes, mouse smoothie for your ankle. And if you had a toothache, some medieval folks believed that stuffing a dead mouse into your mouth could help. Apparently, dental hygiene wasn't invented yet. Today, we have hospitals, antibiotics, and trained professionals. Back then, you've got an infection? Quick, someone find a mouse and make sure it's still kicking. History lesson. Just because something is traditional doesn't mean it's smart. So next time you get a paper cut, maybe don't raid the pet store for healing purposes. Ever heard of a job where collecting human poop made you respected and rich? Well, let me take you to Edo period Japan, where your poop had value and people actually fought over it. Yes, this is a real story. Get ready for the stinkiest economy in history. Between the 1600s and 1800s, Edo, now Tokyo, was booming. Over 1 million people packed in like sushi rolls. But with that many humans comes one pressing issue. What do you do with all that? The answer? You collect it, sell it, and grow vegetables with it. That's right, human waste was a hot commodity. Farmers in the countryside paid good money for the nutrient-rich night soil. It made their crops thrive, and because the city was growing fast, poop demand skyrocketed. This gave rise to an elite class of workers, the night soil men. They walked through the city with buckets and carts, collecting human waste from homes and public toilets. It wasn't glamorous, but it was profitable. And guess what? Poop from rich people's homes was worth more money. Because wealthy folks ate better, their poops had premium nutrients. That's right, even your bowel movements had social class. It went so far that landlords signed poop contracts with tenants. Live here, but I own your poop. Sometimes, poop from a rich neighborhood was so valuable, rival farmers would bribe collectors or even steal poop at night. Imagine a midnight heist for human waste. So while Europe was throwing waste out the window, yelling, "Gardez-le!" Japan was turning it into eco-friendly fertilizer, boosting agriculture and cleaning the city. And you thought your recycling game was strong? Respect to the night soil men, the unsung heroes of sustainability, one bucket at a time. Think your sweaty gym friend smells bad? Try living in medieval Europe, where smelling absolutely terrible was a flex. Let me introduce you to a time when soap was suspicious, baths were considered sinful, and the royalty stank the most. A holy fear of baths. In the Middle Ages, many believed that bathing opened your pores to demons. Yes, demons. Water was seen as dangerous. It could weaken your body, or worse, tempt your soul to vanity. So people avoided it like the plague. Also, literally during the plague. Public bathhouses used to be popular in early medieval times, but by the 14th century, they were seen as places of sin and STDs, not hygiene. Royalty equaled walking perfume bombs. King Louis XIV of France, also known as the Sun King, reportedly bathed only 3 times in his life. Instead, he bathed in perfume, not water. The royal court was famous for its smell. Courtiers carried scented handkerchiefs to survive a meeting with the king. One noble woman wrote, "His Majesty smells like spring, if spring died in a barn." Cover it, don't clean it. Instead of washing, people powdered their wigs with flour, dabbed themselves with rose oil, and wore layers upon layers of clothing. Sweat? Natural. Rotten teeth? Fashionable. Moldy armpits? The price of elegance. Smell became a class marker. If you smelled clean, you were probably poor and had to do manual labor. But if you smelled like a spoiled cheese wheel left in a dungeon, congrats, you were probably nobility. So next time someone complains about deodorant shortages, just remind them, hey, at least we're not in 1349, where being stinky wasn't just normal, it was trendy. Ever dreamed of looking like a porcelain doll? In the 16th and 18th century, noble women in Europe took that dream a little too seriously. And by seriously, I mean they smeared poison on their faces every single day. Let me introduce you to the most deadly beauty product of all time, Venetian ceruse. Fancy name, deadly recipe. White lead, vinegar, and sometimes mercury, all blended into a creamy paste that made your skin pale, smooth, and slowly, terminally ill. Why did they do it? Because back then, pale skin equals luxury. Having a suntan meant you worked outside. Pale face? That meant you were rich enough to never see the sun. So women powdered themselves until their skin looked like a frosted donut, ignoring the fact that this beauty trend came with side effects like hair loss, rotting teeth, facial paralysis, and of course, death. Queen Elizabeth I was the OG beauty influencer in this trend. She used Venetian ceruse to hide her smallpox scars and created a flawless, glowing white look that everyone wanted. Except her face started turning into a crusty mess underneath. She basically looked like a zombie wearing foundation. But did that stop others? Nope. Nobles would rather drop dead in style than be caught with a freckle. Want to know the irony? Venetian ceruse actually damaged the skin so badly that users had to apply more and more to cover up the damage. It became a deadly cycle of coverage and decay, kind of like Instagram filters, but lethal. Doctors of the time even noticed the symptoms, but the women? Shh, don't ruin the aesthetic. They just kept applying it until one day they stopped forever. So next time you think your skincare routine is too long, be thankful it doesn't involve smearing death on your face. Beauty is pain, they said, but back then, beauty was murder. You won't believe what humans used to do to each other in the name of justice. Here are the most brutal punishments in history, so extreme they make horror movies look tame. Scaphism, the worst way to die in history? So, you think ancient torture was all about dungeons, whips, and chains? Let me introduce you to Scaphism, the ancient Persian method of saying, you messed up, big time. We're in ancient Persia, around 500 BCE. You've committed a crime, maybe treason, maybe just insulted the wrong royal. Whatever it was, the king's not happy. But instead of a quick death, they decided to get creative. They bring out two hollowed out canoes, lay you inside one, and close the other on top. Only your head, hands, and feet stick out, like a horrifying ancient sandwich. You're the meat. They force feed you a mixture of milk and honey. A lot of it. Sounds tasty? Not really, because this cocktail causes, you guessed it, explosive diarrhea. And they keep feeding you, day after day. But wait, it gets better, or worse. They smear your face, arms, and legs with more honey. Then, they float the canoe out onto a stagnant lake in the sun. And then comes the bugs. Flies, ants, wasps. They feast on you. They crawl inside your eyes, ears, open sores, and yes, inside your body. Some records say victims survive like this for over 17 days, being slowly eaten alive by insects while sitting in your own poop. The first known victim? A soldier named Mithridates, who killed a Persian noble. And let's just say he probably regretted that. So next time you think you're having a bad day, at least you're not being digested alive by 1,000 bugs in a poop canoe. History, it's wild. Ling Chi, death by 1,000 cuts. Yes, literally. You've heard the phrase, death by 1,000 cuts, right? Well, that wasn't just a metaphor. It was a real execution method in ancient China. And yes, they actually counted the cuts. Imperial China, from the 10th to early 20th century. You commit treason, you kill your dad, you disrespect the emperor. Boom, you get Ling Chi, also known as slow slicing. Spoiler? Not fun. First, you're tied to a wooden frame. Then the executioner starts cutting you, bit by bit. Not to kill fast, oh no. They aim to keep you alive through dozens, sometimes hundreds of cuts. Finger here, a chunk of thigh, a slice of chest. The idea was to humiliate and torture you, piece by piece. But wait, there's more. In traditional belief, dying with your body mutilated meant your soul couldn't rest. So it wasn't just physical pain, it was eternal punishment. The last official Ling Chi happened in 1905 with photos. So next time someone says, "This is killing me slowly," just smile and say, "Hey, at least it's not Ling Chi." History. Sharp, creepy, and way too detailed. The Breaking Wheel, Medieval Europe's bone-crushing justice. Welcome to medieval Europe, where justice was swift and incredibly bone-breaking. Let's talk about the Breaking Wheel, also known as the Catherine Wheel, the only wheel of fortune where you never win, and never walk again. Used in France, Germany, Sweden, basically anywhere medieval justice got creative. Crimes, murder, treason, or just being super unlucky. The method. The victim is tied to a giant wooden wheel or laid on a cross-shaped platform. Then comes the star of the show, the executioner, wielding a big iron bar. He starts smashing limbs one by one. Arms, legs, ribs, with careful precision. They even had bone-breaking patterns. If you're lucky, he hits your chest first. Boom, instant death. If not, you're stuck like a human pretzel, raised on a pole for birds and sunlight to finish the job. Fun fact, Saint Catherine was supposed to be executed this way, but legend says the wheel snapped when it touched her. That's not justice, that's divine rage quit. So next time someone says, "I'm feeling crushed," just be glad you're not on the medieval spinning skeleton smasher. History. Twisted, loud, and definitely not chiropractor approved. The Brazen Bull, the ancient barbecue you don't want to be in. Ancient Greece gave us democracy, philosophy, and a metal bull that screams while roasting people alive. Say hello to the Brazen Bull, history's most terrifying oven. 6th century BCE, Sicily. A tyrant named Phalaris ruled the city of Acragas. Enter Perilos, a metal worker who thought, why not mix art with torture? So he built it, a life-size hollow bronze bull with a little door in its side. You lock someone inside, light a fire underneath, and slowly they get roasted alive from the inside. But wait, there's more! Parallels designed tubes in the bull's head, so the victim's screams would echo out as bull sounds. Because why just kill someone when you can make it musical? The irony? Phalaris loved the idea, so much that he tested on Parallels himself. The guy who made it was the first one inside. Hot karma served medium rare. So next time your room feels too hot, just be grateful you're not inside a bronze cow with built-in speakers. History: loud, toasty, and totally unhinged. Sawing: the worst kind of splitting headache from the bottom up. Medieval justice was, let's say, not subtle. If you made someone really angry back then, they didn't just jail you. Nope, they flipped you upside down and sawed you in half. Say hello to sawing, the human version of firewood. Used in Europe, the Middle East, and even Asia. Usually reserved for traitors, heretics, or people kings just really hated. The method: you get tied upside down, legs up, head down. Why upside down? Because blood rushes to your brain, keeping you alive and aware longer. Then they start cutting, from the groin up through the legs, pelvis, abdomen. Some victims stayed conscious until the saw reached their chest. Imagine watching your own body being turned into a science project. Public show bonus: this was often done in town squares, with people watching and cheering. Repent now, or we'll make you half the person you used to be! So next time you feel split between two choices, just be glad you're not literally getting split in half. History: sharp, gruesome, and upside down awful. Rat torture: when a rodent becomes your worst nightmare. Torture devices in history were wild, but sometimes you don't need swords or fire. All you need is a rat. Yes, a living, squirming, panicked rat. And a metal bucket. Welcome to the wonderful world of rat torture, where your worst fear becomes dinner for a rodent. Popular in medieval Europe, ancient China, and reportedly even in South America. The logic? Simple. Step 1, take a metal container, a bowl, or a bucket. Step 2, trap a live rat inside. Step 3, place the open side of the container against the victim's bare stomach or chest. And now, the fun part. Start heating the outside of the metal bucket with fire or hot coals. Now imagine you're the rat. The metal's getting hotter. You can't go backwards. The only way out? Dig through the human. And so the rat, panicked and desperate, starts chewing and clawing its way into the victim's body. Not through, into. Why rats? Because they're smart. Because they panic. And because when scared, they go full horror movie. And the worst part? This wasn't even always meant to kill, just to terrify or extract confessions. Congratulations! You're now a living escape tunnel. Used by Roman Emperor Domitian. Appeared in the Tower of London. Heck, even Game of Thrones used it. When history and HBO agree, you know it's nasty. So next time you see a rat and scream, just be glad it's not trying to burrow into your rib cage. History: creepy, cheesy, and not at all pet-friendly. Impalement: Vlad the Impaler's favorite decoration. You think medieval punishments were bad? Let me introduce you to impalement, where you don't just die, you become a human lawn ornament. 15th century Wallachia. A charming prince named Vlad III, or Vlad the Impaler, is in charge. He loves steaks more than vampires ever did. The victim is forced onto a blunt wooden pole, inserted from the bottom, and slowly pushed upward, sometimes exiting through the shoulder, chest, or even the mouth. The trick? The pole isn't sharp, so you don't die fast. It slides through your body, pushing organs aside to keep you alive for hours, maybe days. Basically, human shish kebab, slow roasted in misery. Vlad reportedly impaled thousands. One time, he lined an entire forest path with corpses on stakes just to greet an enemy army. They turned around. Smart choice. So next time someone says, "You're being too dramatic," just remind them at least you're not part of Vlad's spooky stick collection. History. Pointy, petty, and painfully artistic. You think history was all about grand wars and serious battles? Think again. Behold, one of the most ridiculous wars in history. A war not fought over land, not over gold, not even over love, but over a beard insult. Yes, a man got mocked for his facial hair, and thousands died for it. Welcome to 14th century Italy, where city-states like Florence and Modena were always ready to rumble. It was the medieval version of a neighborhood feud, but with knights. Now, picture this. A Florentine soldier passes by a Modenese knight and casually insults his beard. "Looks like a squirrel died on your face," he may have said. Okay, we don't have the exact quote, but it must have been something spicy. The Modenese knight took it very personally. He returned home fuming, and he didn't just say, "Someone mocked my beard." No. He claimed that Florence had dishonored Modena's pride. The city council got mad. Florence said, "Phew, it's just a beard." Modena said, "This means war." And so began the War of the Whiskers, also known as the Battle of Zappolino. On November 15th, 1325, more than 30,000 soldiers from both cities met in battle. Modena, outnumbered but fueled by beard rage, fought like maniacs. They crushed the Florentine army. And what did they steal as a war trophy? A wooden bucket. Yes, a bucket from a Florentine well. They took it back to Modena, proudly placed it in their city hall. It's still there today. Thousands of lives, a giant battle, all because of a beard joke and a bucket. So next time someone mocks your beard, take a deep breath. Don't start a medieval war. Death by war? Sure. Death by birds? Oh yes. Welcome to the Great Emu War of 1932. Location? Western Australia. Target? Emus, giant, fluffy, flightless birds. The problem? After World War I, Aussie veterans were given land to farm. Sounds great, except the land was bad, water scarce, and 20,000 emus invade the fields like feathery tanks. They trampled fences, devoured crops, and ran like Olympic sprinters. Farmers panicked, so they called in the big guns, literally. The military sent Major G.P.W. Meredith, 2 soldiers, and 2 Lewis machine guns. The mission? Control the emu population. Easy, right? Wrong. Day 1, they spotted a group of emus. Fired. The birds scattered like ninjas. Not a single one fell. Day 2, they cornered 1,000 emus near a dam. Opened fire. The gun jammed. The emus ran again. Day 3, they mounted the gun on a truck, chased emus at full speed, but emus ran faster. The truck bounced so hard they couldn't aim. Result? More bullets hit the sky than the birds. After 2 weeks, the army admitted defeat. Only about a few hundred emus were killed out of 20,000. The rest, they just kept running and laughing in emu language. Major Meredith later said, "If we had a division of emus, we could defeat any army in the world." So yes, in 1932, Australia lost a war to birds. Let that sink in. What's brown, sticky, and deadly at 35 miles per hour? Nope, not a chocolate tank. It's the Great Molasses Flood of 1919, baby. Boston, Massachusetts, January 15th, 1919. A quiet winter afternoon in the North End. Kids playing stickball, horses trotting along, and somewhere, a 2.3 million gallon tank of thick, ooey-gooey molasses just sitting there. Because what else screams city planning like storing an ocean of syrup next to homes? At 12:40 p.m., bam! The tank exploded. Locals said it sounded like a machine gun, but stickier. A tsunami of hot molasses, 25 feet high, rushed through the streets at 35 miles per hour, or 56 kilometers per hour. It destroyed buildings, tossed train cars like toys, and swallowed horses whole. People tried to run, but guess what? You ever tried sprinting through pancake syrup? 21 people died, over 150 injured. Molasses flooded basements, clung to everything, and took months to clean. They said for decades, on hot days, the smell of molasses still lingered. And the best part, the company that owned that tank blamed, wait for it, anarchists. Turns out, the real culprit, the tank was poorly built, barely inspected, and started leaking weeks before the blast. No one listened. So yeah, Boston had a molasses flood, and not just a sticky situation, this was a syrupocalypse. Moral of the story? Next time someone says slow as molasses, remember it once moved faster than a horse. Once upon a time in medieval Italy, two powerful city-states, Modena and Bologna, were bitter rivals. And what did they fight over? A wooden bucket. Yep, a freaking bucket. Let me explain. The year was 1325. Tensions were already high. Modena and Bologna had long argued about land, politics, and whose pasta was better. Probably. But one day, a group of Modenese soldiers snuck into Bologna and stole something very precious. Not gold, not secrets, but a bucket from a public well. Just picked it up and walked away like, "Thanks for the water, we'll take this too." Bologna? Outraged. They demanded the bucket back. Modena said, "Come and get it." So Bologna did, with 30,000 soldiers. Yes, 30,000 men marching to Modena to reclaim a bucket. Modena? They were ready, with just 7,000 defenders. They fortified themselves and said, "You'll have to pry this bucket from our cold, dead hand." A fierce battle broke out at Zappolino. Steel clashed, arrows flew, men died, over a bucket. Incredibly, the Modenese won. They drove the Bolognese army back home in shame. And the bucket? They kept it. To this day, the wooden bucket is proudly displayed in Modena City Hall, like a trophy, like a reminder that sometimes petty drama becomes epic history. So what's the lesson here? Never underestimate Italian pride, and never mess with another city's water bucket. In the wild world of history, there are wars fought for land, for glory, and for national pride. But this This is the tale of 93 years of war, declared by a village of 300 people, armed with 0 weapons, against France. Yes, you heard that right. Welcome to Lijar, a sleepy little town in the south of Spain. The year is 1883. Spain is a proud kingdom. And Lijar? Well, it's a tiny village where goats probably outnumber people. That year, King Alfonso XII of Spain traveled to Paris on a diplomatic visit. You know, handshakes, fancy dinners, king stuff. But things went sideways. When the king arrived in Paris, a bunch of French protesters booed him, insulted him, and threw some very unroyal language at his majesty. The Spanish press lost their minds. "An insult to the king is an insult to the nation," they cried. But guess who took it the most seriously? Not the military, not the government. Nope, it was the town council of Lijar, population 300. Mayor Don Miguel Garcia Saz gathered the people and declared, "France has insulted our king! We shall go to war!" And they did. Lijar officially declared war on France. No weapons, no army, just pure honor, anger, and probably wine. For 93 years, the war didn't happen. No battles, no injuries. France never even noticed. Then, in 1976, a new king of Spain visited Paris again. And this time, the French were nice. So Lijar held a town meeting and decided, alright, we forgive France. They signed a peace treaty. And that's the story of how a tiny Spanish village declared war on France, fought no battles, lost no soldiers, and technically won. Lesson of the day: never underestimate a small town with big pride. Imagine this. You're a farmer. You live on a beautiful island. One day, a pig walks into your garden and eats your potatoes. What do? Well, in most cases, you'd shoo the pig away. But in 1859, on San Juan Island, that pig sparked a war. Here's the backstory. San Juan Island lies between mainland USA and Canada. Back then, both the British and the Americans claimed ownership of it. But nobody wanted to fight, until a pig got hungry. A British settler named Charles Griffin owned a black pig. The pig wandered into the garden of Lyman Cutlar, an American farmer, and started munching on his potatoes. Cutlar yelled at the pig. The pig just oinked back. So, Cutlar did what any potato-loving man would do. He shot the pig. Big mistake. Griffin was furious. He demanded compensation. Cutlar refused, saying, "It's eating my crops. I shot it. Fair game." Tensions exploded. British troops prepared for war. The Americans sent soldiers too, for a dead pig. Soon, over 400 American soldiers and 5 British warships were staring each other down. Cannons loaded, fingers twitching. Luckily, cooler heads prevailed. A British admiral reportedly said, "It's not worth going to war over a damn pig." The two sides agreed to a peaceful joint occupation, and the pig became a historical legend. The pig war never had a single casualty, except for the pig. Moral of the story? Never mess with a man's potatoes. Did a football match really start a war? Oh yes, and it wasn't even the World Cup. Welcome to 1969, where El Salvador and Honduras didn't just fight for goals. They fought with guns, tanks, and airstrikes. Honduras and El Salvador had beef. Not football beef, real beef. Land disputes, border tensions, economic stress. Plus, thousands of Salvadorans had moved into Honduras, and Honduras wasn't exactly happy about it. So what did they do to fix it? Obviously, play football. 3 matches were scheduled. It started with insults, booing, and national anthems being drowned out. Fans fought, players cried. One fan allegedly shot himself when his team lost. Yep, football was no longer just a game. By the 3rd match, it was pure chaos. El Salvador won and immediately broke diplomatic ties with Honduras. Next day, boom, war. Tanks rolled in, planes dropped bombs, soldiers marched. All over a football match? Well, kinda. It lasted 100 hours. About 3,000 people died. They call it the 100-Hour War, but history remembers it as the Soccer War. The lesson? Football brings people together. Unless you're losing, then it brings the entire army.
There are ordinary objects that are rumored to be cursed with deadly curses. Come with me to find out. They say some chairs are uncomfortable, but this one might kill you. Welcome to the cursed tale of the Busby Stoop Chair, the deadliest seat in England's history. Meet Thomas Busby. Professional drunk, full-time mess, and the kind of guy who would lose a fight with a shadow. He lived in North Yorkshire, and he loved 2 things in this world, his wife and his scratched-up, beer-stained wooden chair. Now, his father-in-law, Daniel Audie, absolutely despised him. Then came the day. Busby stumbles home drunk again, and what does he see? Audie sitting in his chair. Gasp! Busby absolutely snaps. He grabs a hammer because why settle for words when you can escalate to blunt force trauma, and murders the old man? Because nothing says Happy Father's Day like chair-related homicide. He gets caught, obviously, sentenced to death, but right before his execution near the local inn, Busby drops his final, Oscar-worthy line, "Let death come to anyone who dares sit in my chair." Chilling, dramatic, slightly over the top. But hey, the curse stuck. Decades pass, the chair remains, and then things start getting weird. People sit, people die. During World War II, airmen who sat in the chair mysteriously never returned from missions. Delivery men crashed. A roofer slipped off a roof hours after taking a break on the chair. One guy sat in it and got struck by lightning, indoors. They nailed the cursed thing to the wall. Like a floating wooden death trap. It's still there today, at the Thirsk Museum. So next time you see an old wooden chair, completely empty in a crowded bar, ask yourself, why is no one sitting there? And maybe, just maybe, don't. What if I told you there's a painting so cursed, it became famous for surviving house fires? Introducing The Crying Boy, a mass-produced painting from the 1950s, showing a sad little boy with watery eyes, trembling lips, and the kind of look that screams, "I'm not okay, and maybe you won't be either." Painted by Italian artist Bruno Amadio, this melancholic masterpiece was printed and sold all across post-war Europe, especially in the UK. It became bizarrely popular. People hung it in their kitchens, living rooms, even bedrooms. Then, the weird stuff started happening. In the 1980s, a string of mysterious house fires broke out across the UK. Homes were destroyed, furniture gone. But one thing kept showing up in the rubble: the Crying Boy painting. Untouched. Not even a scorch mark. Firefighters were confused. Tabloids had a meltdown. Headlines screamed, "Curse of the Crying Boy, the painting that won't burn." Some families swore they heard whispers near the painting before the fires. Others claimed they felt watched. And some just got tired of being haunted by sadness and bad luck. People began burning the painting, only to find it wouldn't catch fire. Another man's car broke down right after he dumped the painting. At one point, the British Fire Department had to issue a public statement. It's not cursed, it's just printed on flame, retardant material. But let's be honest, that's boring. The idea of a painting that chooses to survive fires? Way more fun, way more cursed. Have you ever seen a wedding dress that moves on its own? No wind, no strings, no bride, just pure drama. Let's rewind to the 1840s in Pennsylvania, USA. Anna Baker was the daughter of Elias Baker, a super-rich ironmaster who loved money almost as much as he hated poor people. Unfortunately for him, Anna fell head over heels in love with a lowly ironworker. And just like every rich dad in every tragic love story, Mr. Baker said, "You're not marrying that broke dude while you live under my roof." Then probably slammed a door dramatically. Anna, of course, had already picked out a gorgeous wedding dress. White, flowing, elegant, ready for her big day. But nope. Daddy Baker forbade the wedding, fired the poor guy, and basically sentenced Anna to a lifetime of heartbreak and boredom. She never married. She lived in that big mansion, bitter and alone, until the day she died. Her dress? It stayed untouched, stored away like a ghost of a dream. Fast forward to today, the dress is displayed at the Blair County Historical Society. And here's the spooky twist. Staff and visitors swear the dress moves. Its sleeves sway, the fabric rustles, and it sometimes twirls like it's still waiting for a wedding dance. Some say it's just air currents. Others? They say Anna's ghost is still there, trying on her dress for the wedding she never had. Have you ever bought something on eBay that brought more than just bad vibes? Well, meet the Dybbuk box, a small wine cabinet that's basically haunted house, portable edition. It all started in 2001 when a guy named Kevin Manis, a Portland antique store owner, bought this old wine box at an estate sale, nothing too spooky, until he gave it to his mom as a gift. Aw, right? Well, she opened it and immediately had a stroke. Yep, happy birthday, Mom. Kevin took it back and started experiencing weird stuff, lights shattering, nightmares, strange smells like jasmine and cat pee. Yeah, that's an actual combo. So naturally, he did what any cursed human would do. He sold it on eBay. The box allegedly contains a Dybbuk, a malicious spirit from Jewish folklore that can possess the living. Inside the box, dried rosebuds, a goblet, a candlestick holder, some pennies, and one single lock of hair. After being passed between terrified owners and racking up a body count of headaches, night terrors, and shattered relationships, the Dybbuk box ended up with Zach Bagans. Yep, the Ghost Adventures guy. And now it's locked in a glass case at his haunted museum in Vegas, because why burn it when you can charge people $45 to look at it? So, if you're ever online shopping and see a wine cabinet with "Do Not Open" written on it, maybe just don't. You've heard of Annabelle, right? Cool. But before her, there was Robert the doll, the OG haunted doll, and quite possibly the pettiest spirit in a sailor suit. Let's rewind to the early 1900s in Key West, Florida. A young boy named Robert Eugene Otto, or just Gene, received a handmade doll from a Bahamian servant who allegedly practiced voodoo. Yep, already sketchy. Gene named the doll Robert, because nothing says creepy like naming a doll after yourself, and treated it like a real person. It had its own seat at the dinner table, its own room, and, according to Gene, its own attitude. Then, weird stuff started happening. Neighbors reported seeing the doll move in the window when no one was home. Gene's parents heard him talking to Robert, and sometimes Robert talked back. At night, Gene would scream for help, and when his parents rushed in, they'd find furniture thrown across the room and Robert sitting very calmly. Even creepier? As an adult, Jean still kept Robert giving him his own room with a window view. Yup, just your everyday adult man and his totally cursed doll roommate. After Jean died in 1974, Robert was found in the attic and eventually sent to the East Martello Museum, where he now lives behind glass. But here's the deal. If you visit Robert, you must ask permission before taking a photo. If you don't, well, people report broken bones, ruined relationships, lost jobs, and mysteriously failing electronics. Some even write apology letters to the doll afterward. Seriously. So, lesson learned? If a doll dressed like a sailor is staring at you, maybe don't make fun of it. What if I told you one of the most beautiful diamonds on Earth might also be one of the most dangerous? Meet the Hope Diamond, a 45.5 2-carat deep blue jewel with a history so cursed it could have its own horror movie franchise. It all began in the 1600s in India. Legend says the diamond was stolen from a statue of a Hindu goddess, possibly ripped from her eye. The man who took it? Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. He brought it to Europe, sold it to King Louis XIV, and later died mysteriously. King Louis wore the diamond proudly. Then came his descendants, Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. They had it, flaunted it, and well. Got their heads removed during the French Revolution. Coincidence? Owners reported accidents, suicides, divorces, mental breakdowns, and one guy was even eaten by dogs. Eventually, Harry Winston bought it and, plot twist, mailed it to the Smithsonian Museum in a box through U.S. mail for $2.44, insured. Today, the Hope Diamond sits safely behind glass in Washington, D.C., still sparkling, still watching. So, would you wear it? This isn't fiction. These are 7 real-life heists, so smart, so bold, most of the thieves got away clean. Think bank heists require masks, guns, lasers, and high-speed getaways? Not in Iraq in 2003. There, all you needed was a handwritten note from the president. Here's what happened. Right before the U.S. invaded Iraq, things were chaotic. The country was on edge. And Saddam Hussein, president of Iraq, decided it was the perfect time to empty the central bank. So he wrote a short letter like a grocery list and handed it to his son, Qusay Hussein. It said, "Hi, please give my son approximately $1 billion in cash. Thanks. Signed, Saddam." And yes, the bank gave it to him. No alarms, no drama. Just 3 trucks full of cash rolling out like it was payday. No ski masks, no getaway cars, no Mission Impossible music. Just vibes and presidential authority. Qusay and his crew spent a few hours loading money into trucks and drove away, completely unbothered. Police, powerless. Media, silent. Because in Saddam's Iraq, if you said no, you probably disappeared by dinner. It remains the biggest, easiest, and most legal bank robbery in modern history. No breaking in. No hiding faces. Just presidential stationery. After the fall of the regime, U.S. troops found $650 million in cash hidden behind a wall in one of Saddam's palaces. As for the rest, still missing. Maybe someone's grandma is using it to prop up her television. You think Ocean's 11 is just a movie? Well, in Belgium, 2003, a group of criminals pulled off something just as crazy, but in real life. This was the Antwerp diamond heist, and the target? A vault holding over $100 million in diamonds, gold, and other shiny, insanely expensive things. Security was so tight, People joked. If a fly entered, it would get photographed 4 times and have its family background checked. And yet, someone still broke in. The mastermind? Leonardo Notarbartolo, an Italian gentleman thief with slick hair and serious patience. He spent 2 years preparing. He rented an office in the building, disguised himself as a diamond dealer, and every day studied the layout cameras, lasers, guards, even coffee breaks. Then came the job. His crew, known as the School of Turin, was made up of 4 guys, each a specialist: the lockpicker, the sensor disabler, the fake technician, and the guy who hid gear inside sandwiches. Yes, really. They bypassed 10 layers of security, including heat sensors, motion detectors, infrared lasers, dual-layer vault doors, security cameras. And how did they do it? With stuff you'd find at a hardware store: screwdrivers, magnets, hair clips, duct tape. It was like breaking into Fort Knox using IKEA tools. They emptied the vault, took over $100 million in loot, and vanished without triggering a single alarm. No cameras, no fingerprints, no noise. So how did they get caught? Well, one of them threw away a trash bag full of evidence in a forest. A local ferret, yes, a literal ferret, dragged the trash into the road. Police picked it up, and the rest is history. Notarbartolo was arrested. But the diamonds? Never recovered. The rest of the crew? Gone, like ghosts. It's still known as the perfect heist. You've heard the saying, to get rich, you have to dig deep? Well, this crew took it literally. In August 2005, in the city of Fortaleza, Brazil, a new business popped up in a quiet neighborhood. It was called Grama Sintetica, a landscaping company selling artificial grass. Looked legit. Locals saw trucks going in and out, guys hauling dirt, tools, and concrete. Very professional. Except the company was fake. Inside that house, a gang of robbers had been working for 3 months, digging a 260-foot tunnel with lighting, ventilation, and wooden walls leading directly underneath the central bank's money vault. And on a quiet weekend in August, when the bank was closed, they popped up from beneath the floor and stole 3.5 tons of cash, nearly $70 million in Brazilian reals. No alarms. No injuries. No cameras caught a thing. And the wildest part? The bank didn't realize anything was missing until Monday. The security guard walked in, saw a hole in the floor, and said, where did all the money go? This is now considered one of the biggest and cleanest bank heists in history. Some of the gang were eventually caught, but most of the money? Still missing. So, next time someone opens a turf business next to a bank, maybe ask what kind of digging they're doing. Imagine this. 2 fake cops knock on a museum door at night and walk away with $500 million in stolen art, and 30 years later, no one's been arrested. Sounds like a movie, right? Welcome to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist, one of the most mysterious and successful art thefts in history. On the 18th of March, 1990, while Boston was partying hard for St. Patrick's Day, 2 men dressed as police officers knocked on the museum door. They told the night guards, "We're here about a disturbance." And believe it or not, the guards just let them in. Within seconds, the officers revealed the plot. This is a robbery. They tied the guards up with duct tape and said, "Thanks, now we'll go take some art." For the next 81 minutes, the thieves roamed freely through the museum, calmly slicing paintings out of their frames, and possibly taking a coffee break while they were at it. They stole 13 masterpieces, including works by Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Degas valued at over $500 million. No alarms, no fingerprints, no security footage, and to this day, not a single arrest. The paintings are still missing, The thieves vanished. And the museum? They've left the empty frames hanging, as if waiting for the art to return. There's a $10 million reward for any info. So remember, sometimes the best heist doesn't need gadgets or gunfights, just confidence, costumes, and really good timing. What if I told you someone hijacked a plane, took the ransom, and literally jumped out midair, never to be seen again? Welcome to the legend of D.B. Cooper, the man who made history and then disappeared from it. It was the 24th of November, 1971. A calm, well-dressed man, wearing a suit and sunglasses, bought a one-way ticket under the name Dan Cooper on Northwest Airlines Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle. He looked like a businessman, nothing unusual. He took his seat, ordered a bourbon and soda like a gentleman, and handed a note to the flight attendant. She thought it was his phone number, so she didn't read it. Cooper leaned in and whispered, "Ma'am, you might want to read that. I have a bomb." "Oh, okay then." He opened his briefcase just enough to show wires and red sticks classic movie villain style and calmly gave his demands. $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting on the tarmac. Authorities just went with it. The plane landed in Seattle, ransom delivered, passengers released, and Cooper told the crew to fly again, this time toward Mexico, slow and low. Then, about 20 minutes into the flight, Cooper opened the back stairs and jumped out of the plane, with the money, into the night, during a storm, over a forest. No one ever saw him again. FBI launched one of the biggest investigations in U.S. history. Nothing. They found some of the cash buried by a river, but not Cooper. Dead or alive, no one knows. But one thing's for sure. D.B. Cooper didn't just hijack a plane, he hijacked history. You think the biggest heists in the world take minutes? Hours? Welcome to Nigeria, where people have been stealing oil for decades, and nobody's stopped them. This is the longest-running robbery of the 21st century, and nope, it's not a joke. Let's rewind. Nigeria is one of Africa's top oil producers. Every day, millions of barrels flow through pipelines, stretched across jungles, swamps, and sometimes people's backyards. Then someone had a genius thought. Why not poke a little hole in the pipe and help ourselves? Pipeline tapping became a side hustle. It started small, just a leak here, a bucket there. Then came the tools: hoses, mini pumps, homemade refineries, even switch-on, switch-off valves like it's a gas station. Oil was stolen right from the source, hauled out by trucks, sold on the black market, or swapped for political favors. Farmers? Fishermen? Nope. Welcome to oil villagers. In some areas, tapping oil is a family tradition. Fathers pass it on like folklore. Son, remember the pipe near the third palm tree has the best pressure. Does the government know? Of course. The oil companies know. The locals know. But everyone's tangled in the mess, and nobody dares shut it down. In 2022 alone, Nigeria lost nearly $600 million to oil theft in just 1 year. And the best part? No guns, no ski masks, no getaway cars. Just a pipe, a barrel, and a smile when someone asks, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Oh, just watering the crops." The smoothest, longest, and slickest heist in history is still happening. Have you ever heard of a thief who stole over $600 million and then gave it all back with a moral lesson attached? Let me introduce you to the wildest crypto heist in history. Poly Network, 2021. Poly Network is a decentralized finance platform, or DeFi, that lets people swap, send, and play with crypto across multiple blockchains. Lots of money, lots of smart contracts, and apparently, one giant security flaw. In August 2021, a mysterious hacker identity unknown discovered a loophole. With just a few clever lines of code, he could move funds straight into his own wallet. And he did. Boom. Within minutes, he drained over $610 million. Ethereum, Binance, Coin, USDC, you name it. Crypto Twitter exploded. Poly Network begged, "Dear hacker, please return the funds. Pretty please. We promise we won't call the cops." And then something insane happened. He started giving it back. Bit by bit, token by token, the hacker slowly returned all the money. People were confused. Was he scared? Did he feel guilty? Was he just really, really bored? Then came a message from the man himself, signed as Mr. Whitehat. "I just wanted to teach you a lesson. If I could find this bug, someone worse could too. Fix it." Oh, and the punchline? Poly Network offered him a job as their head of security. No arrests, no jail time, and a $500,000 bounty as a thank you tip. So yes, the greatest crypto heist ever was also the nicest. Think you were born in the wrong generation? Trust me, it could have been much, much worse. Here are the worst times in history to be born as a human. Welcome to the year 536. If you thought 2020 was a disaster, oh no. Historians agree that 536 was the worst year to be alive in human history. Let me set the scene. You wake up one morning expecting sunlight, but the sky? Permanently gray. The sun? Gone. Not night, not quite day, just a never-ending twilight. Why? A massive volcanic eruption, possibly in Iceland, shot ash so high into the atmosphere that sunlight couldn't break through for 18 months. Yep, the Earth basically hit low brightness mode for a year and a half. And the consequences? Crops failed worldwide. Temperatures dropped 2-3 degrees Celsius globally. Famines spread like bad reviews on Yelp. Entire civilizations struggled to survive. Congratulations, you've been born into the planet's longest, gloomiest power outage. But wait, there's more. Just when the world was already down bad, in 541 AD, something new popped up. The first recorded bubonic plague. The plague of Justinian swept across the Byzantine Empire, killing up to 50 million people, nearly half the population of Europe. So if you were born in 536, here's your life plan. No sun, no crops, no food, and eventually, no neighbors. Modern scholars call it the start of the worst century to be alive. People at the time probably just called it, "What the hell is happening?" So next time you complain about a bad day, just remember, you weren't born in 536. Congratulations! You've just been born in medieval Europe in 1347. Your first breath? It's filled with incense, dead rats, and the sound of coughing from 3 blocks away. Welcome to the party, the Black Death is here. You are now one of the unluckiest humans ever born. Why? Because 1 out of every 3 people you know will be dead by next summer. Your doctor doesn't believe in germs. Instead, he thinks disease comes from bad smells and planets being moody. So his solution is to wave incense at you while slapping leeches on your tiny baby body. No antibiotics, no soap, no sewer system. Oh, and don't expect diapers. It's just rags and hay, buddy. People are dying so fast there aren't enough priests to bless them. So folks start saying, well, I guess we'll just throw the bodies in the river. Then they drink the river. Nice. If you sneeze in public, you might be accused of witchcraft. If your parents die, you get sent to a monastery. If you survive to age 5, you're a medieval superhero. But hey, silver lining. You won't have to worry about student loans or traffic. You will, however, have to worry about rats. Lots of rats. And in the year 1347, the rats always win. Have you ever thought you were born in the wrong era? No iPhones as a kid? Missed TikTok until 8th grade? Tough life. But at least you weren't born in the middle of a nuclear explosion. Back in August 1945, Japan was in its final days of World War II. People in Hiroshima and Nagasaki were thinking, maybe the war's finally ending. Well, not quite. On the 6th of August at 8:15 a.m., a little something called Little Boy dropped on Hiroshima. The temperature at ground zero? Nearly 7,000 degrees Celsius. Everything within 2 kilometers? Gone. Vaporized. And believe it or not, some women were in labor when it happened. Yes, there were babies being born during a nuclear blast. Some survived, some didn't. But those who did had to grow up with radiation in their bones, literally. They were called hibakusha survivors of the bomb. And while most babies cry when they're born, some of them, there wasn't enough air to cry. 3 days later, on the 9th of August, Fat Man hit Nagasaki. Again, more children were born inside crumbling hospitals, surrounded by flames, ash, and chaos. One mother later recalled, "I didn't know what that sound was. I just remember. I was pushing." These children grew up weak, sick, some with cancer, all because of a war they didn't even understand. So next time you complain about waking up early, your phone dying, or getting caught in the rain, remember, some people were born as the city around them exploded. Ever wondered what's the absolute worst time to be born as a male human? Let me introduce you to Germany 1914. Because if you were born then, you basically unlocked hard mode, Human History Edition. You were born just as World War I kicked off. Your dad got shipped to the trenches, your mom got food rations. You grew up with air raid sirens and bread that tasted like sadness. By the time you turned 4, Germany lost. And your family got hit with war debt and boiled potatoes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Every night you heard your dad mutter, "The French took our soul and our sausages." Your childhood? Good luck. You lived through hyperinflation. It took a whole wheelbarrow of cash to buy a loaf of bread. You carried money in sacks and still couldn't afford dinner because prices rose while you counted. Then you turned 20? Hello, Hitler Youth. You were drafted to march, salute, and learn to blame people for everything. By 25, surprise. World War II. If you're lucky, you're carrying a rifle. If not, you're under a bombing raid. By 1945, you're nearly 30. You think, maybe now I can rest. Wrong. Germany splits. Which side are you on? If it's East Germany, congratulations, comrade. You now get no fuel, no butter, 2 television channels, and endless propaganda. If it's West Germany, here's a shovel. You'll be spending your 30s rebuilding the country, brick by brick. To recap, being born in Germany in 1914 means you survive 2 world wars, 1 economic collapse, 1 dictatorship, and a country split in half with 0 chill in between. Who needs time travel to visit hell when you can just be born in Germany 1914? You think you had a rough birth story? Try this on for size. Imagine being born in the 17th century. Not in a hospital, not in a hut, but on a slave ship crossing the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, your first breath? Inside a pitch-black wooden hull packed with 200 chained people, no windows, and an aroma best described as death meets seawater. Lovely. Your crib? A rag tied to a beam above a bucket full of human waste. Cozy. No lullabies. No warm milk. Just screams, whip cracks, seasickness, and prayers you won't get tossed overboard for crying too loud. Because that happened. Newborns on slave ships were often considered non-profitable cargo, and if they cried too much or looked weak, they were discarded, like overripe fruit. And if you survived, well, congrats. You now belong to someone. You are not a person. You are property. A live item on a manifest priced per pound, renamed by your future owner, and possibly branded. Born on a slave ship, you don't get a birthday. You don't get a homeland. You don't get freedom. You just get a label, and a future that starts in chains. Welcome to Pompeii, land of wine, public baths, parties, and one very bad day. It's the year 79 AD. Life's pretty good. People are chilling, scribbling graffiti on the walls, baking bread, and throwing parties like it's always Friday. And right next door, a big, quiet mountain called Mount Vesuvius. Nobody's too worried about it. It's just there. Then came the 24th of August. That quiet mountain? Boom, it explodes like a shaken bottle of Coke with Mentos inside. A giant cloud shoots 30 kilometers into the air. People in Pompeii look up and go, "Huh, weird weather today." They keep cooking, drinking, living their lives. They have no idea they're about to become history. By afternoon, it starts raining ash, not cute little flakes, but waves of boiling hot death dust mixed with rocks and toxic gas. The sky turns black. People run, some hide. Some freeze, literally. Bodies were later found in mid-scream, mid-bite, mid-poop. Yes, really. About 2,000 people died. Pompeii was buried in ash for over 1,600 years, forgotten by the world. And when archaeologists dug it up, they found everything. Ovens, pots, jewelry, and even graffiti that basically said, "Great wine, hot girls, out of money." Pompeii became a time capsule, frozen in the exact moment disaster struck. So if you were born in Pompeii on the 24th of August, 79 AD, congrats, you had about 3 hours to live your best life, before becoming a very dramatic museum exhibit. Welcome to the Middle Ages, a magical time when sneezing could be fatal and medicine was basically improv comedy with blood. You had a fever? Let's drain your blood to cool you down. Headache? Too much blood in the brain. Drain some more. Swollen leg? Slap a leech on it, problem solved. Yes, bloodletting and leech therapy were top-tier medical practices, and the people who did it, they were called barber surgeons because back then, your hairdresser also did surgery. Imagine getting a haircut and hearing, "Would you like a blood draw with that, sir?" People believed the body had 4 main fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. If you got sick, that meant the fluids were imbalanced. So, naturally, the answer was, bleed them out. Because logic. And leeches? These little vampires were the celebrities of medicine. Pharmacies literally kept jars of them ready to go. They believed leeches could suck the disease right out of your body. Spoiler, they mostly just sucked your blood. Even royalty weren't safe. King Charles II of England died after doctors drained 400 milliliters of blood in a few hours. They also gave him 40 different medicines, rubbed him with animal dung, and made him inhale smoke from a burning fish head. Yup, that was medicine. So, next time you have a cold and reach for Tylenol, just remember, at least no one's sticking leeches on your face. Forget serial killers, these animals turned manhunting into a career. Once upon a very real time in Nepal, there lived a monster. Not a ghost. Not a demon. Nope, it was a tigress with a toothache. Yes, a bad tooth. And because of that, 436 people died. It started when a hunter almost shot her, but only wounded her mouth. Unable to hunt normal prey anymore, she switched menus. To humans. Soft, slow, and apparently delicious. At first, she picked off lone travelers in the jungle. Then she got bolder, started grabbing people from markets, schools, even doorways. Villagers woke up each morning doing, "Who's missing today?" roll calls. They called her the Striped Ghost because she hunted in broad daylight, silently, and vanished into the trees with victims before anyone could scream. Nepal couldn't stop her. So what did they do? They gave up and chased her across the border into India. Yes, the tiger got deported. In India, she continued her people-snacking habits, reaching over 400 kills, and that's when Jim Corbett stepped in hunter, legend, possibly part tiger himself. He tracked her for days, crawled through bushes, dodged her ambushes, and finally shot her in a narrow mountain pass. One bullet, one legend. The man ended the reign of history's deadliest man-eater. In 1898, the British Empire was building a railroad across Kenya. Everything was going smoothly until two very hungry lions showed up and said, This construction site looks delicious." These lions weren't ordinary. They had no manes, looked like ghosts in the night, and apparently thought humans were the tastiest meal on the savannah. At first, the workers thought people were just wandering off. Then, night after night, someone disappeared. Sleeping in tents? Not safe. Up on trees? Useless. One night, a lion dragged an entire mattress and the guy on it right out of the tent without waking anyone. Stealth rating, solid lion 100. Panic spread. Some thought they were ghost lions. Others believed it was a curse. One worker just packed up and said, "Nope, I'm out." Things got so bad that the entire railway project stopped, not because of war or politics, but because two cats were hangry. Eventually, Engineer Lieutenant John Patterson took matters into his own hands. He camped, hunted, and after several sleepless nights, shot both lions. Not before they allegedly killed between 30 to 135 people. The lions were later stuffed and put on display at the Field Museum in Chicago. To this day, they sit there mouths wide open, reminding everyone that even history's deadliest predators sometimes just hate railroads. In Burundi, near the mysterious Lake Tanganyika, a place with beautiful sunsets and zero Wi-Fi lived, a crocodile so massive, villagers call him the water demon. His name? Gustav. He's not your average croc. Over 20 feet long, weighs a ton, and has battle scars like he fought 3 hippos and walked away bored. Locals say, he doesn't swim. He glides, like a submarine with attitude. But here's the kicker. Gustav is picky. He doesn't eat fish, doesn't care for birds. One time, someone threw meat in the water Gustav surfaced, splashed it away, and disappeared like he was offended. He's blamed for over 200 human deaths, and weirdly, he seems to have preferences. Targets people in red shirts. Avoids those who sing. Never attacks tourists with cameras. He's brand conscious, clearly. A film crew once tried to trap him. They built a giant steel cage, added night vision cameras, and used a fat goat as bait. Night falls, Gustav arrives, looks at the goat, looks at the camera, and walks away. This is low-budget bait. I eat people. Respect my taste. To this day, no one has ever captured him. No one has clear footage, no selfies, nothing. He's either dead or he's watching. Some fishermen still whisper, "I saw glowing yellow eyes, and then the water went still." So remember, Gustav, not just a crocodile, a legend, a lifestyle, a nightmare in HD. In early 1900s India, something terrifying prowled the forests of Kumaon. It didn't roar. It didn't growl. But if you heard the faintest rustle in the grass at night, too late. You were already dinner. Meet the panner leopard, one of the deadliest man-eaters in history, with a kill count of over 400 humans. And the craziest part? It wasn't evil, it was just practical. You see, this leopard got injured by a clumsy human hunter. With a bullet wound and bad leg, chasing deer and goats became hard work. So it decided, you know what's easier than chasing deer? Humans. They walk slow and taste like chicken. But this wasn't a brute force killer. No, this leopard was a stealth ninja. It stalked villagers for days, snuck into huts at night, dragged people away without a sound, sometimes without leaving blood or footprints. Villagers were terrified. Some refused to walk alone. Others slept in baskets tied to trees. Even local officials were like, "Yeah, no thanks." Enter Jim Corbett, legendary hunter/leopard therapist. He tracked the beast for weeks, sleeping in the jungle, sipping tea with lizards, and pretending to be bait. One night he saw it. Glowing eyes, quiet breath, like death itself sniffing the air. One shot. Silence. Victory. The leopard was dead. Jim was a hero. And villagers could finally sleep in their beds, or at least not in tree baskets. Moral of the story? Don't injure a leopard and leave it alive. It will switch species out of spite. Hokkaido, Japan, winter of 1915. Snow was falling, the wind was freezing, and the people of Sankabetsu village just wanted to stay under the blanket. But their biggest winter problem wasn't the flu. It was a massive, fur-covered, refrigerator-sized bear that had decided, "Forget berries, I'm hungry for something, meatier." At first, the bear just lurked at the edge of the forest, sniffing around like a food critic. But on the 9th of December, it made its move, smashing into a small house where only a mother and her baby were home. Yes. The bear kicked down the door like it was auditioning for a martial arts movie, and what followed was a dinner scene straight out of a horror film. The villagers panicked. A hunting team was formed, but the bear returned the next day and attacked another family while the hunters were eating lunch. Because, hey, everyone needs to eat, even giant murder bears. The bear kept coming back, as if it was playing bear roulette with the neighborhood. Every visit, new house, new victims, new panic. Eventually, the town brought in a legendary hunter named Yamamoto, armed with a rifle, silver bullets, and a deep hatred for anything that ruined his afternoon drinking. After days of tracking, he shot and killed the bear on the 14th of December. The final toll: 7 people dead, a village traumatized, and one extremely fat bear no longer hungry. The bear was nearly 3 meters tall and weighed over 350 kilograms. The villagers were so shaken, they built a shrine to pray the bear never reincarnates. It was 1945, near the end of World War II. The British were advancing across Southeast Asia, and one of their strategic targets was Ramri Island, Myanmar. Japanese troops were holding the island, but eventually got cornered. With the British pressing in from all sides, they made a desperate move. They tried to escape through Ramri Swamp. Big mistake. Let's talk about this swamp. Ramri Swamp wasn't your average puddle. This was a massive, mosquito-infested, mud-drenched nightmare filled with deep water, sticky mud, and zero visibility, poisonous snakes and deadly bacteria, and of course, hundreds of giant saltwater crocodiles, each the size of a small car and hungry like it's Black Friday. Then came the night. About 1,000 Japanese soldiers entered the swamp. At first, splash, splash, bug buzz, minor swearing. But soon after, screams, gunshots, silence. And then, snap! Not your usual snack sound. British troops nearby reported hearing horrifying screams and bizarre thrashing in the distance. They couldn't do anything but listen as nature did what it does best: clean up the battlefield in the most brutal way possible. By sunrise, only around 20 soldiers came out. They were half drowned, covered in mud, and looked like they'd seen prehistoric horror. The legacy? A record-breaking nightmare. Guinness World Records officially logged it as the deadliest animal attack on humans ever, though modern historians debate the number. Still, all agree. If you're cornered in a war, and the only way out is through a swamp full of dinosaur-level predators, it's okay to just surrender. And to this day, Ramri is no longer just an island. It's the perfect metaphor for a decision that sounded smart but ended with something eating your legs. India, 1910s. In the sacred hills of Rudraprayag, where pilgrims came to pray for peace and blessings, something else was praying too. A man-eating leopard. But this wasn't just any leopard. It didn't roar. It didn't chase. It just sneaked in at night, dragged people out of their homes, and vanished. Locals called it the ghost that climbs roofs. With over 125 confirmed victims, it became a national terror. Why would a leopard eat people? Historians believe it was injured by a trap or gunshot, making it too slow to hunt wild animals. And like any lazy predator, it discovered that humans are slower, softer, and way easier to catch during nap time. The villagers panicked. People slept on rooftops. They lit bonfires every night like it was a camping trip in a horror movie. Doors were locked, then barricaded, then double-locked. Still, the leopard came. Who stopped it? The legend. Jim Corbett, hunter of man-eaters, friend of forests. Armed with patience, a rifle, and probably instant noodles, he tracked the beast for over a year. Finally, in 1926, Corbett shot the leopard with a single bullet. The nightmare ended. Locals cheered. The leopard? Stuffed and placed in a museum where it now silently judges tourists. The moral of the story: the deadliest killers are often the quietest. And if you're ever sleeping near the Himalayas, close your windows. You never know who's watching.